Welcome back to the show. Okay, I have something a little bit different for you this week, and this is the first male guest ever to appear on Feel Good Alcohol Free. So I am so excited to introduce you to Ryan Kennedy. Ryan is the creator and host of the Rock Bottom with Ryan podcast. After overcoming many years of addiction, Ryan now shares honest conversations about recovery, mental health, and second chances. As he prepares to become a sober coach, he's also building a business dedicated to promoting individuals, organizations, and businesses making a positive impact in the recovery and mental health community. Ryan is a passionate advocate, not only for people recovering from alcohol and drug addiction, but also for raising awareness about trauma, abuse, grief, and the many underlying challenges that often contribute to addiction and mental health struggles. Through his work, he is helping break the stigma surrounding these issues while showing that healing, hope, and long term recovery are possible. Now, I'm really excited to have Ryan on the show today. So I don't want to wait another second before I share our conversation with you. But one of the biggest pieces here is I'm excited to share this because Ryan and I have very different points of view on some of these areas. And he also is what I've started to call a hybrid AAer. And I hope that we talk about that a little bit today, where he loves the community of AA, but he doesn't follow all the steps. And so let's just dive in. Ryan Kennedy, I'm so glad to have you on the show today.
Excited to be here, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is great. So I've already given my audience an introduction a little bit about you, but I'd love for you to just kind of share with us in your own words, like, who are you? What do you do?
My name's Ryan, and I am from Idaho, but originally from Seattle area. I moved out here about 5, 6 years ago, around kind of the start of COVID kind of starting, and was trying to come out to get my drinking under control and just get a little life change after getting out of a rough marriage that didn't end well and all this other stuff. And I came out here and had a good job with a company that specializes in selling equipment and worked with them for a while, and then got into trading stocks full time. And then, just spend a lot of time on the river, spend a lot of time golfing, to just stay really busy. And then lately, as of the last 20, almost 22 months of sobriety, I've really got into podcasting, as you know, and that's become a really big passion of mine is the recovery community, and also on the board of directors for a company that helps people transition from prison to getting back out into the real world. And so just all these things I've gotten involved in the last 22 months that just feel like they help me feel like I have purpose, and they also feel like it's giving back in some way. And but the podcast has become my passion, and everything that goes along with it, with social media content and all that, has been a big part of my life lately. So just being in recovery, taking it a day at a time, has been my full-time job.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So my audience is very much used to me not using some of the language that you're using. So this is a totally different vibe for the show,
Oh, okay.
which I love. No, I'm really excited about it because I very much like, I'm glad that AA exists and I'm glad that it has helped people. It just wasn't for me. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of that with you today, but I'd love for you to kind of take us back to like, what did drinking look like for you when you were still drinking? And like, when did you know you had to change something in your
Well, I drank consistently. Like, I wasn't the type of person who started drinking young. Like, I talked to a lot of people where their story starts at like 13, 14. I didn't really drink much until I got, it was probably a year into college. So I was probably like 20 when it started to like become a thing in my life. And before that, I'd only drank like a few times in high school and stuff. So once it started, though, the weird thing that I told myself, which I haven't admitted on many podcasts or talked about a lot myself, but I just said, I'm going to be an alcoholic the rest of my life. I told myself that. Like, I just said, I love this feeling. I feel so comfortable in my own skin all of a sudden. This is crazy. And I just want to feel like this forever. So I'm going to be an alcoholic. And it's weird to tell yourself something like that, but it was like a feeling I'd never had before. I felt liked, I felt comfortable. I felt like I could finally just be the person I always wanted to be and not just feel like an anxious wreck all the time. Even though I think I masked it well growing up and stuff, I think I just really struggled trying to wear that mask the older I got. So having alcohol to cure that, it just escalated. But when I told myself that I'm going to be an alcoholic, I didn't know how progressive the disease was. I didn't know it was going to take over my life. And it just got progressively worse all the way through my mid 20s when I first started trying to quit. So I basically was an alcoholic full blown for about 16, 17 years. And I was probably trying to quit for about 10 of those years. And I'm 39 now as of a few weeks ago. And I just think, so much time went towards drinking and trying to quit. And it basically just consumed my life. I consumed alcohol. It consumed everything in my life. It was my plan that when I woke up in the morning to when I went to bed at night, alcohol was the plan. And it impacted everything. I had to pre-funk for all the simple things in life. Like going to run errands, I had to drink before that. Not because I wanted to have fun and enjoy and like do, but because I had to. And it got to the point where I had to drink just to function, to not be shaking and to not be having panic attacks. And so once it got to that level and mixed in with as you know, the name of my show, Rock Bottom, mixed in with multiple rock bottom moments where whether it be jail a few times, whether it be hospital visits due to injuries caused by drinking, seizures caused by drinking, suicidal ideation caused by drinking, there was multiple factors that came in where I'm just like, I don't know if I should be doing this to myself anymore. And one thing led to another, and I kept trying to convince myself that I could change on my own, that, oh yeah, the second I get out of the hospital or jail, I am going to do this differently and get it under control. But I never said I was going to quit forever because I don't know, that just didn't sound realistic. And I never said that I was going to quit for a year or anything because that doesn't sound realistic, but I can definitely control it. And once I was in the hospital this last time about 3 months ago now, I was just sitting there and multiple people came in to visit me, and I just finally came to my senses. I'm like, it's time for me to go to treatment. And I decided that day to reach out to a few people, and they helped me get into treatment. And I was there for 45 days, and that was just kind of, I haven't had a drink since. But it's crazy how much I was lying to myself through the midst of all this, trying to convince myself that I could do this on my own. And it was hard for me to surrender and ask for help and accept the fact that I have a legit problem that I've been trying to quit for a long time, and it just keeps getting worse. Even
I mean, 100%. I can relate to that. I spent at least 10 years trying to control it, trying to become a normal drinker, somebody who, whatever a normal drinker is, I don't think that it really exists. But whatever vision of normal I had, I spent a very long time trying to do that. So I can absolutely relate to that, like constant, like, why can't, like, when I think about being able to figure it out, I think, how come I can't figure out how to just have like one drink? Or
yeah,
it wasn't about like, how come I can't figure out how to quit drinking on my own? It was like, why do I just keep ending up hungover every day? And so I can definitely resonate with that. Like,
yeah.
and I'm certain that the people listening to this are like, yeah, I've been thinking about this for many, many years.
Yeah, and then the outcomes just keep getting worse, and you don't think it's possible because you're like, oh, I've learned my lesson this time. There's no way it could get any worse than this ever again. And then the next thing you know, you go back to it, and the outcome's even worse, which I never understood how relapses or just going back to the drinking or drugs could actually make a worse outcome. But it kept getting worse, and I was baffled by it. And it got to the point where I'm like, I need help. And I'm not even the most spiritual person in the world, or especially back when I was drinking. I am more now, but this nun that knew me from childhood, when I was like 9 years old. She was a nun at a private school that I went to when I was like nine, so 30 years ago. She happened to work at the church where she like reads the rites to people that are passing away. So was working at the hospital that I was at the last time. And she saw my name on a list and recognized it from 30 years prior and said, wow, Ryan Kennedy is in the hospital. I'm going to go check on him. And she came in and prayed for me every day I was in the hospital. And I think that kind of helped me come to my senses too. I'm like, this couldn't be happening for no reason. So that also made me want to like try to reach for extra help. So just
Totally,
so many
totally. Yeah.
signs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not, I'm not a religious person, but I consider myself spiritual and I consider myself like a looker of signs. I'm always like, oh, this was a sign. This was a message that I need to be paying attention to right now. And I don't know, what I'm kind of taking away from that is that like somebody cared enough about you to like for even if you just take the praying part out, if you're not religious, like somebody cared enough about you to come and see you every day or think of you or do something on your behalf, basically. Like that to me
Exactly.
is really powerful.
Yeah, definitely is. I just felt cared about, and I felt like I wasn't alone in this, and it also made me realize that my drinking is not just affecting me; it really affected everybody around me too, and people do still care about me, and I'm lucky to even have that in my life. I'm lucky to still have anybody to even consider associating with me after a lot of the stuff that I'd done or been through or all that I would have given up on myself, so why wouldn't other people? But just the fact that I still had people loving me, and there was people that were still investing their hearts in me after all this time, and not to mention health insurance investing in me going to treatment. I'm like, I want to take this seriously.
I love that. Yeah, exactly. It's like we kind of take for granted those things sometimes, particularly when you're in it, when you're not paying
Yeah,
attention to all of those people who love you. And it's like it just how do I start to even like give back to this? But that's what you're doing now. Like
yeah.
that's I really look at this as I was truly meant to like show up and serve in this way, and it sounds like you feel that way too.
Definitely do. Yeah, I never thought if I had to look back 22 months ago that I would be talking about my life, being vulnerable on a podcast and having a platform for other people to be vulnerable. Like these are all things that I would have been way too self-conscious to do a couple of years ago, and would have never been. I didn't even touch social media up until I started doing the podcast. So now just being able to open up and other people telling their stories helps me be vulnerable about my own story. And it's just, it keeps going around in a cycle. So it's like, if I feel like I'm helping people, they're helping me just as much tenfold. So,
Yeah, yeah. I can definitely relate to that. Like I will be 6 years sober here in a few weeks. And if somebody said, guess what, in 6 years, you are going to have a podcast and you are going to be a sober coach and you are going to be telling everybody about your last drink and your journey to quit drinking, I would have literally laughed out loud. Like, there's no way.
I know it's pretty incredible. Your story was amazing to hear on my show. And it's like, it's
Oh,
crazy how much progress we make, and just it's like night and day compared to where we thought we'd be. So,
it's bizarre. Life has a funny way of working out, I guess.
yeah.
So, okay, you mentioned a few minutes ago that you had like kind of like maybe multiple rock bottoms, or just when you thought things couldn't get worse, they kind of did. Can you share what are a couple of examples? Like, what had
Oh,
you
yeah.
saying, well, that's rock bottom? I want to hear about it.
Gosh, I don't even know where to start, but there were so many of them. There was a time where I'd gotten thrown off a balcony by some people that I they had some issues with me, but I had issues with them because I was really protective of my little sister, and we got into like a altercation a long time ago, and then they came and retaliated, and they threw me off a balcony. And the only reason I survived that fall was because my body was intoxicated and limp enough to survive the fall, or I could have been, they said I would have been paralyzed or dead if had I not been intoxicated. So that's the only time I can say alcohol saved my life. But that caused me to be bedridden for like a few weeks, and my face was unrecognizable. More than happy to send you a picture so you can pop it up on the podcast if you want, but it was not good. And then so that was a moment where like I went and didn't want to be alone, so I went and stayed at my father's house at the time, and just recovered, and then got my mind back together, and then immediately went back and drank. And that was just kind of telling to me that these things aren't turning into lessons. And then about, what was it, not to mention a very toxic marriage soon after that. That was another thing that I think it actually made me want to be a controlled drinker. So after that marriage ended, I actually became a controlled drinker, which my version of controlled drinking is probably full blown alcoholism to most people because I would actually count my drinks and stop at a limit every day, and I did that for like 4 years, and I never had more than 8 drinks a day ever. And I was perfectly functional, got everything done, stuck to my plans, and then it didn't get bad until after I quit my job so I could trade stocks full time. And then next thing you know, I have all this time on my hands, and then that turned me into a morning to sundown alcoholic.
Yeah.
And that was just no structure, nobody staring over my shoulder, to write me up or anything. It was me being in control, and that's what really like took it to a whole nother level again. And then there was a time where I tried to quit a few years ago. This was like a few months before I got sober the first time. So I was sober for 90 days at one point prior to this time. I had like a 2-month relapse, but I went for a run in the middle of the night thinking after I'd been drinking all evening, and I was like, I'm going to just go sober tomorrow and I'm going to do this. I'm going to like be sober for good and I'm going to go on a run in the middle of the night. So I went on this jog in the middle of the night, still disoriented from drinking, and then ended up falling down a huge flight of concrete stairs, got extremely injured. The injuries were so bad that I ended up getting airlifted to a hospital because the hospital in the small town wasn't big enough, and this was only like 2.5 years ago, and or less than about 2 years ago. But airlifted to the hospital, spent about a week and a half in there, and I told myself after that, I'm like, okay, I'm quitting. I'm going to meetings, and I'm gonna. So I went to meetings for 90 days, and I still can't see out of my right eye because of some injury that happened when I fell. So I'm still partially blind in my right eye. It's healing gradually, but it was purple and just messed up, and they said they were going to have to remove it. So that should have been another wake up call, just losing my vision, having my teeth knocked out, having my lip, I have stitches under my beard and stuff. So it's like, but there's just so many injuries. And once again, that's like the third time in my life I've looked unrecognizable. I don't know how I healed or whatever, but for the most part, but it's like that should have been another wake up call. And it still wasn't enough because I went to meetings for 90 days after those injuries and decided on day 90, if I can go 90 days, I got this figured out. That was my thought process. I'm like, I went 90 days. This is like a record. I've never even gone 90 total days without alcohol since I started drinking. So, and I was just like, okay. So I took a drink one of those this juice box of wine, like those little ones that have like equivalent to 3 glasses in it. And I was just like, I've been saving this for a good time. And I drank it, planning on it only being the only one I had that day. I went to the store and bought 4 more of those and just got completely tanked. Just, it was back to where I started. So I thought that would be enough, but that led to a 2-month nonstop, never left my room, DoorDash delivery type relapse. And it was terrible until one morning I woke up and was trying to take a shower and I couldn't get the buzz or get the shakes to go away. And I know a lot of maybe your listeners have experienced that before or not, but like the shakes obviously are, I can't even put my contacts in. I can't hardly text somebody if I wanted to. It was just frustrating, but I was trying to drink those away and nothing was changing. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take a shower. And then I had a seizure in the shower and ended up in the hospital a final time. So those were just some of the notable rock bottom moments where I was just kind of like, well, it's probably time to look in the mirror and say, hey, there's got to be some changes because there's nothing but consequences. I've never heard of anything positive about going back to drinking. I've never heard of anybody's life getting better going back to drinking. So I really had to look at it from that perspective. But now that I'm sober, I can look back and point out another 100 rock bottoms that should have been a reminder. Everything from very toxic, abusive relationships, emotionally, verbally, just so many things that should have told me, Ryan, just like, do something different. And it just wasn't enough sometimes. But this
Yeah.
time it set in.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes the situation is very severe, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that that wasn't a wake up call. But I mean, there's also a lot of other little things that maybe at first don't seem like a big deal, but they are. Like, I used to be really mean to my husband, like when I would drink for like
Yeah.
no reason. And he never knew it was coming, It was like, or, like those types of things. Like, I don't want to be the person that treats somebody else like that. And so it's like there's so many things, like some of them are deeply tragic and quite frankly like traumatizing. Like you endured some trauma throughout your rock bottoms
Yeah.
where like for some people there it's not the oh my gosh, traditional, what you would think of a rock bottom. You're not like homeless and drinking a 40 out of a paper bag. Like that does, you
Exactly.
don't have to get there to want to quit. And so something that I'm thinking of here, people listening to your story right now, they might be thinking, I'm not that bad.
Yeah. I know,
Yeah.
and it's like the yet thing. I don't know if you talked about the you're
Yeah.
eligible too. It's like, yeah, there's the
Yeah.
guy that's sitting outside the liquor store with a paper bag, but that easily could have been me 5 years from now or something. So I mean, I wouldn't put it past me because I also didn't think I was going to be in such toxic relationships. I didn't think I would be hospitalized for seizures, but I was eligible too.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I always say like I never got a DUI or any like or DWI, but yet like it was only inevitable that that would have happened at some point, I feel like.
Exactly.
And so yeah, definitely the yet thing. So what would you say to somebody who's comparing their drinking to yours as a reason not to change?
Somebody who's comparing their drinking to mine as a reason not to change.
Yeah,
That's a
like
good
they're saying
question.
like I'm not that bad. Like for example, there was a lot of times I would be reading like Quit Lit, like a book,
Oh yeah.
and
Yep.
maybe there'd be a woman who's telling her story and she's talking about like doing cocaine in the bathroom and drinking 3 bottles of wine. And I would be like, oh, I'm not as bad as
I'm not that
her.
bad.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I was talking to somebody about this when I was actually chairing a meeting yesterday. I actually brought up this as a subject where I was just kind of like, we can't judge people because of their story being different because everybody's perspective of what a problem is with alcohol or drugs is their perspective. I made it like when I hear about like somebody who say comes home and has a couple of glasses of wine and it doesn't sound anything compared to me where I was having up to upwards of 15 to 25 drinks a day, around my worst and stuff. And I'm like, oh no, that's real alcoholism. But no, in reality, if it's affecting your life, your health, your mind state in any way, shape, and form, even if it's having just a glass a week or something, I feel like it all ties into the same issue. You want to get better. So what I would tell somebody who thinks their drinking's not bad compared is how is it impacting your life? You got to really look at yourself in the mirror and think on days that you're not consuming alcohol or what was life like before consuming alcohol, are you doing it for the wrong reasons? Those are just questions you want to ask yourself because just because maybe you're not drinking as much as I say I was, because my tolerance got incredibly ridiculous after all those years. When I was 30 pounds lighter and 20 years old, I could, 5 drinks would get me, but I mean, it's just all the tolerance that built up. But I just think that it's all relative to the person. I used to catch myself slightly judging people, and I hated to admit this yesterday, even at my own meeting that I was chairing. I was just kind of saying, yeah, I would judge people that came in and would talk about being alcoholics when their drinking was like a tenth of my drinking, or they weren't waking up and drinking first thing in the morning, or they weren't hiding it in their car. That's alcoholism. But I mean, anything I think can be considered alcoholism if it's affecting your life in any way and you're looking at it. And if you're asking yourself, do I have a problem? Then you probably do if you have to ask yourself that.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't use the word alcoholic or I really don't even say the word alcoholism. I think that it's more about like we don't have to have labels. Like I'm not going to call myself that for the rest of my life or anything. And I feel like if you wake up every day and you don't feel your best, you owe it to yourself to look at what is causing you to not feel your best mentally and physically. And
Yeah.
if alcohol is something that you need to put under the microscope for a while, then that's where you start. Because I think we also want to like blame every other thing on a crappy night's sleep or like it must have been that I ate too much for dinner and then I didn't sleep well. Like, no, it was the bottle of wine or like
Yep. Yep, exactly. We
Or
always look for another scapegoat. So
yeah, exactly. So, okay, I want to dive into speaking of how I don't use labels. You go to AA, but you have created your own relationship with it. And so I really want you to share with my audience this because most of the women or people listening to this podcast are like, I don't want to go to AA. So that's off the table for me. And so, what parts of it have been more valuable to you? Like, what do you practice? What do you not? What does this relationship look like for you?
this relationship has evolved with a bunch of practice and incorporating different things from AA into my life without feeling any pressure from AA. Because one thing I want to tell everybody, all listeners who haven't been to meetings, like there's no rule books. I mean, nobody's taking roll if you're going or not. I mean, there are steps, there are traditions, there are things that like they incorporate into every meeting. But when I first went in, the first time ever, about 10 years ago, I was intoxicated and I went in. And the one thing I remember that stood out to me was other people that wanted to get better shaking my hand, giving me a hug, and they didn't even know me. So that part really stuck with me. But I didn't go to another meeting because I wasn't ready yet for up until about 26 months ago, about was when I started going to meetings again after I had the injury where I was airlifted to the hospital. And I went in and I felt like there was going to be a bunch of pressure. And me not being the most religious person in the world, I saw God written all over the steps and stuff, and it's written there like 4 or 5 times, and I didn't really want that to do with, but I still wanted to be in a place where I felt safe and that I could be comfortable talking about things, and that's kind of how I approached it. And the longer I was there, the more I realized nobody's taking roll. Nobody ever gets mad at me if I don't show up tomorrow. Nobody is enforcing any rules on me to pick up that big book and start reading it. And I've noticed that it's just, I can take what I want from this atmosphere without feeling any pressure to do the big book, to get sponsors. I mean, I was told right away by a couple of people that they're like, oh yeah, get a sponsor, do this and that. And I just said, well, I'm not ready to get a sponsor. And I just kind of went that way. And then finally, I just kind of decided I never really wanted to be the typical person in AA where they have like one specific sponsor. I have a few people that I keep in really close touch with instead, where just each of them kind of fulfills some type of area in my life that I can talk to each one about. And they also became friends as well. So I don't just look at them as sponsors. And so I do that my own way. And then I also chair meetings, and when I bring up topics, it's generally like, yeah, I'll bring out a quote from the book, but I will definitely relate the quote to my own life, and I'll bring up these questions that kind of get people thinking, like thought-provoking questions about the topic. So it doesn't have to be directly from the book or the teachings of Bill W. It's just a different way of approaching it. So I just do everything a lot more casually when it comes to AA. I remind myself that you're walking into a room full of people that all want the same thing. And some people take it more seriously than others. There are people that come in once a month and just sit and listen and don't say a word, and they're still accepted. They're not expected to contribute or talk 3 4 times a week. It's just so you start to realize the expectations from you. They don't have high expectations, like you need to be a big book thumper person and be representing AA and out there. It's supposed to stay anonymous anyways. And so for me, I hope I'm answering your question
Yeah.
with enough detail, but just for me, I go in there and I take what I want from it, and I don't let any pressure make me feel like I have to do more than I feel like is working for me. And if it's working for me to pick up my 90-year-old friend from his house every day and we drive together to the meeting, we have our conversation, and then I take him home afterwards. And being at the meeting, sometimes I sit and just listen. Sometimes I'll share something completely unrelated to what people are talking about. And and then I enjoy giving hugs and shaking hands after. And that's all I really care about. And nobody can tell me, hey, you have to read this book, or hey, you have to talk to your sponsor once a week. I don't care. I do it how I want to do it, and it's the perfect balance for me, and it's kept me sober and progressing for the last 22 months and without any kind of halts or turning backwards or anything. It's just doing it my way. So my advice for people like who aren't sure about AA, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But if you do ever give it, like, approach it and want to just give it a try, just don't feel like you're obligated to do anything or act a certain way. Just go in, take what you want from it. Most importantly, just remember, everybody in that room didn't come in on a winning streak, didn't come in, because they were just pumped to, be there. But we're all there for different reasons. But I've met some amazing people that I think I have lifelong friendships with from that room, and they all know how I approach Alcoholics Anonymous. I am in support of every way, shape, and form somebody can get sober and still work on themselves. So if AA doesn't work for somebody, I totally just say, great, whatever works for you. So,
Yeah, yeah. I'm a big believer in like take what resonates and leave what doesn't.
exactly. Take what
So,
resonates. And that's what I've done. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And there's an element here as I'm listening to you where I kind of feel like it takes actually a really strong person to go into a system or organization like AA and do that, like, and not follow the steps and not do all of the things and to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Because I have not heard this about AA from literally anybody except you. So I think it takes someone who is a little bit more bolder and independent, I guess, like
Yeah.
feeling like, this is something that I want to change in my life. And this is the resource in front of me. I'm going to give it a whirl.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I've changed so many things in my life the last 22 months that, just as alcoholics, we're kind of stubborn people. We don't like to be told how to do things and what to do. And I kind of took that attitude a little bit into my recovery. But at the same time, I'm like, I can give a little bit here and just put myself out there and be open minded, but I don't have to change my entire lifestyle. I don't have to go to these meetings and live by the big book 24/7. I can still just go there for the camaraderie. And I people know how I approach it from the meetings, and I'm still allowed to chair meetings, which is really cool. So it's so clearly, like, they're not judging me based on how I approach it, and they don't judge me because I'm not going home every night and reading the book. Or
right.
I don't. I also won't sponsor anybody. If somebody asks me to sponsor, I just say I'm not the right person to sponsor, just because I don't go about it the way that the book does, and I just want you to go with somebody that you think would be a good fit. If somebody really thinks that that would be a good fit for them, I would do it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. That now I'm on the edge of my seat now, actually. Like, I like that.
But
Because also, I mean, really what I'm hearing here is that the community and the friendship side of things is like why you keep going, and that piece, like why you seem to enjoy it. And what did those relationships give you? Like you mentioned your friend who's 90 years old that you pick up and take. What did they give you that you couldn't create on your own?
they just gave me a sense of purpose, and they made me start to appreciate sober me, because the one thing I used to always battle with was insecurity and not being comfortable in my own skin, not liking myself, and a lot of self-hate, unfortunately, that I would go through for a long time. And I don't think a lot of people knew I was suffering from that. But just the relationships that I built in recovery through the meetings, even through the community online, are they're just authentic. And I don't feel any sense of judgment from anybody, and I'm not judging anybody, because it's like we all have a story. We all did different things to get us to where we are now. And I even posted something recently about, would you erase the past because it shaped who we are now? And I wouldn't. I wouldn't, but because it led me to all these great people. It led me to being stronger in a lot of ways. It taught me a lot about life in general, and things that I had to overcome as a kid and in adulthood that shaped me into who I am today. So, just to answer your question, just meeting these people in the meetings that are of all different ages, all different backgrounds. Some of them, they almost make me feel like I'm not an alcoholic because their stories make mine look very bland, and I'm like, I thought I was the worst. But it's just the sense of not feeling alone is so satisfying. And then being able to connect with people that I used to think I could only be friends with people that just drank and were around my age and had the same interests and wanted to watch sports at a dive bar on a regular basis. And those were who I thought could be my only friends. But I would say 3/4 of my friends now are like over 50, 60, 70 years old, and those are the people I keep in touch with the most, and we get along. I don't feel like I'm younger. I just, maybe I have an old soul in some ways, but it's just, they give me so much more appreciation for life, so much wisdom, so much. These people genuinely care about me, which, I nothing against my buddies back when I was partying really hard and drinking, but I feel like these people care about my well-being and where I'm going to be a year from now and 10 years from now, and they check on me and they want to see how I'm doing. And I've had some great friendships. There's a lot of people from my drinking days I still keep in good touch with, and we'll be friends for life. But these friendships I make in recovery through the meetings and through the online community are just, they're real people who I feel like I can really rely on any time of day, that I never felt like I had that kind of dependence before.
Yeah, yeah. I think when we quit drinking, we become more available to people and relationships. And so I can see that. Oh, that's really sweet. And it is. It's like I don't like hate the version of me who used to drink. I'm not like, oh my gosh, she was such a loser. I have like the drinking version of me got me places, like, and she had fun, and most of it was fine until it wasn't anymore. And so it's like like you said, like, we would not be doing what we're doing today if we didn't have that life experience. And so there's still like a lot to be said for that, I think.
Yeah, no regrets at all. As much as I wish when I was in the midst of it and in the moment and deep down, dark and depressed, obviously I wish life was different. But now looking back at it, I'm like, I'm so glad it shaped me into who I am today. And the fact that I can even make any moves to help other people. I mean, I hope the podcast and things I'm doing is helping one person out there. Then I feel like it's a success. And but yeah, it's pretty amazing. So.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, so okay. I first had wanted to ask you this, really looking at like the lens of being a man and how men are not really encouraged to talk honestly about shame or loneliness or fear or needing support. But honestly, my audience, women, high achieving women who are very, very successful, they also are not really encouraged to talk about these things, or at least they don't, because it could signal some level of weakness. And so I'm just wondering, like, how did that affect your drinking, and what changed when you started to open up? Because, I mean, 3 years ago, it doesn't sound like you were being super vulnerable. And then once you did, that's when like things start to really shift. So I'm curious about that for you.
Yeah, well, I grew up with a dad who was pretty hardcore, and he didn't really take, expressing yourself very lightly. He was just kind of instilled this like tough mentality into me at a young age. Was always, when it came to sports, grades, this and that, he was pretty tough. Maybe he wouldn't admit that even to this day, but he and I have a good relationship now. But since a young age, I always felt like I had to look tough on the outside no matter what, even though on the inside I could be crumbling. Pretty much my entire childhood and early adult years, and even in adulthood, I was still crumbling on the inside, but I had to maintain this tough exterior that everything was okay, or that I had it together, or mask my sadness with jokes or laughter or confidence, or just, it was all false looking back at it. None of it, most of it was fed by liquid courage, of course. If I wasn't drinking, and if I, it was all alcoholism, but it just made me appear more confident than I was, and appear that like I could get through things a lot easier than I could. And it made me kind of a unemotional person in relationships, with friends, with significant others, it just made me an unemotional person, because it's like, yeah, as a guy, I'm not supposed to be vulnerable. I'm not supposed to appear weak. And I'm sure a lot of the women you speak with, high achieving women, the last thing they want to do is appear weak or whatever, because you really want to maintain a certain status and have people look up to you and respect you. And you think showing any vulnerability is going to take all that away and make you look weak and small. And it's like, yeah, so it's like it's a pressure that I want to talk to more guys about this in the future on my own show, but just the pressure we have. And especially, I'm not a father, but I just hear a lot more that even guys my age that are fathers have to undergo a lot of that pressure too, because they have to remain tough as dads and also maintain that image for the kids. And that's why I think it becomes generational sometimes too, is because the dads have to act tough for the kids, and the kids start to see that and they're like, oh, I got to be like my dad. So it's all for different reasons, but I think, yes, us men in general, we men in general have to appear tougher than we really are. But I think some of the most successful men out there that are probably dealing with their emotions the best are the ones that take down that wall and actually allow themselves to express themselves and get vulnerable and actually do, talk about their emotions. Because I would love to know the numbers around it, but how many men actually go to therapy compared to women? I'm sure there's a stat, but I bet it's a lot less for men, sadly. But I remember it took a lot of arm twisting for me to go to therapy. But when I did, I was like a changed man. But it's like, and I'm not trying to make it sound like one gender prefers therapy or the other, but I've heard more about women advising therapy than I've heard about guys doing it. So I'm assuming that right there is a pretty telling thing, but I don't know if there's a stat behind it, but I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, I know. I'd be interested in that one too. I don't even know what would happen if I recommended to my husband that like we go to therapy or he goes to therapy or something like that.
And isn't that interesting that like it's it's something that guys just kind of cringe at? I don't
Yeah.
know, because I've
Yeah.
I've never heard a woman mention to me that she was really opposed to therapy, because I just
Right.
feel so it has to have something to do with men, and I'm sure high achieving women go through this too, but we just have to appear like we don't need help. We can do this on our own. We're independent people. We're strong.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, I think I even had that as well. Like, my dad always had very high expectations of me, and, disappointing him was always not great. And so, or just never feel like I was meeting those expectations. And
Yeah.
so when I became married, I think when I got married, I think I kind of looked at my husband in that same way. Like I had these expectations on myself that
Yeah.
he was definitely not putting on me, but because he was like my male counterpart, or, like whatever, that I could not be vulnerable. And I share a lot in my own journey how literally the moment that I started to become vulnerable with my husband about my drinking is when I turned the biggest corner in my journey. Like it was practically overnight that I was able to
Wow.
like not drink anymore it was like I just had to get that off my chest to
Yeah,
him.
I thought your story was so interesting how you did quit. That's pretty incredible.
Well, thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like I think everybody's story is incredible how they quit,
Yeah.
and there's no one way to do it. But I think that we agree that vulnerability has to play a role.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. You have to be willing to look in deep into your heart and see what kind of things. Because I was talking to somebody yesterday just about something had to make us the way we are. Like there had to be some kind of trauma, even if it stems all the way back to 5 years old or even 5 years ago in a relationship or something. There's a reason we are the way we are, and the reason we put up a guard, the reason we get defensive, the reason we are triggered by certain things. And once you start to look at those things and try to find the roots of it, then things get a lot easier. And finding the roots of it requires really good vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly. It really, really does. And I mean, I think that is the case any time you want to make a big leap in your life or, make a big change. And so it's
Yeah.
super important. We have to like let go of the ego sometimes.
Yep. The ego is everything. And then humility is
Yep.
kind of like ego's worst enemy.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Exactly.
Yep.
So, for somebody who knows that alcohol is taking up, more space, more time, more headspace than they want, and they don't relate to these labels like recovery, alcohol, or alcoholic, relapse, like, or like these traditional kind of recovery type stories, what would you want them to hear? What's your biggest advice?
Well, I mean, even if your life appears happy or great on the outside, if nobody in your life, could even tell that you were struggling in some way, even if you don't think you're struggling, like how are you feeling? Like, are you really happy? Are you as happy as you possibly could be? And now, obviously, I know the sky is the limit for how happy we can be, I think. And I just think, like, is it adding any substance to your life, even if it's just a little bit here and there, a glass or two a night or whatever? Is it really like, are you waking up saying, I'm glad I did that? Or are you waking up saying, oh, maybe I could have slept a little better, or this could have been a little bit better? And it doesn't matter. You don't have to be, there's no specific number of drinks you have to have per day to get the label of alcoholics, or there's not a certain amount of sober time you need, I don't think, to say I'm in recovery. You don't even have to use those labels. I don't think, even if you never have to say you're an alcoholic for the rest of your life, but you could still stop drinking, you could still slow it down, you could still get it under control. So
Yeah.
I just think, just look at what it's doing for you. And I've never heard somebody cut back on drinking and saying they wish they hadn't cut back. I've never heard of somebody stop drinking and say, I wish I didn't stop. Never
Yeah.
heard somebody, everybody who's done less drinking in their life, and if you can moderate, like, and be a normal person and do it normally, I totally encourage anybody who can do that. I am not one of those lucky people. If I have one, I am losing everything I worked for the last 22 months within a couple of weeks. And
Yeah.
so I just think that high achieving women, or even high achieving men, or everybody out there that, may just be questioning if, like, hey, I don't think I'm an alcoholic, but I want to trim this down a little bit and see what my, because you could just imagine your potential. If you can be successful and be high achieving while drinking as much as you have now, and you're looking at yourself now and you're like, I wonder what life would be like if I didn't drink. Just imagine how successful you could be. And after
10x.
after talking to you, and just hearing about your success story, just like how you're doing multiple people's positions at once, and it's just like
Oh
incredible.
yeah.
And just like, just you get to see your potential, fully clear minded, fully present, just so thinking lucidly 24/7, and you're present for your family too. I mean, so it doesn't even have to just do with career or just family. It's everywhere, all facets of life. You're feeling better and clear headed. So I just think
It's
there's so many reasons to cut back and see what the results are.
Yes, exactly. Like treating
So,
it like an experiment. Like, how do I feel with 30 days of no alcohol or 45 days of no alcohol? What happens to my relationships and my work? And
and you
the
never have to tell yourself, I'm quitting forever. You never have to say that at all.
Right, right. Exactly. You don't. You just kind of wake up one day and you're like, "Holy shit, I'm a year sober." Or something.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I can't
That's what I like
believe.
about your story. It's kind of like, you've had those periods of sobriety here and there, but it's like then you just quit. You just stopped. So,
Well, it was hard, but yeah, I
yeah,
did. Sometimes when I look back, it feels like I did just kind of, but I think it was just like finally so sick of my own crap that I was
yeah,
like, this has to be it. I have to keep trying life without alcohol because like all of the success. And there was one
yeah.
thing you said that rang a bell in my head that I want to point out. And that was that you said some people are lucky enough to moderate drinking or just have a couple of drinks. And, I used to say that too. I used to say, I wish I could be a normal drinker, or you're so lucky you can just have one. And now that I actually have like thought about what alcohol does to my body and how it makes me feel, I actually I think that using that type of language still makes alcohol feel special. And
That's true.
I don't think alcohol is special anymore. I think it's garbage to like,
Yeah, it
and
is
so,
instant
but
poison.
that is a big mindset shift. And as long as we hold alcohol as something that is special, we stay stuck wanting to be whatever a normal drinker is. So that
I'm glad
just,
you pointed that out. I'm glad you pointed that out, because even using as an recovering alcoholic, and I give myself the label all day, to even put the word lucky in the same sentence as alcohol shows that there's a side of me that still glorifies it a little bit, like
exactly.
as if somebody is special because they can do it better than I can. And that's not the way to look at it. That is like one of the coolest things I've ever been called out on.
Oh, well, I do like calling people out
I
on
like
things.
it. I
So,
like it. But that gives me a whole different perspective on how I'm going to talk about it, because
oh, I'm so glad. Yeah. And I mean, like, this was me too. Like, I was always, for so many years, the coveted thing was to become a normal drinker. And then I feel like I failed at that. And
yeah.
so, but then I realized like that I don't think that that was really my goal all along. I just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, no, that's such a great way of looking at it. So give me a
Good, good. Well, I also wanted to point out that I had learned about you. Are you in the process of becoming a sober coach?
I am. I have it on the website. I am still perfecting my coaching plan and all that and how I want to go about it. And I'm going to be creating kind of an app to go along with it as well. So there's a lot in the works. So I kind of got a little ahead of myself on the website and threw it on there just to kind of pitch that it's coming soon. And then I'm hoping by probably around Christmas time, I'll be kind of fully launching, taking clients and stuff. But I just want to make sure I have it perfectly set and structured and have a couple of different plans set up so people can choose between how long they want to work with me at first and all that. So
I love it. I love it. And so in the meantime, where can people find you?
Rock Bottom with Ryan, all lowercase on Instagram, and then Rock Bottom with Ryan on YouTube. I think the first letter of every word is capitalized. And then TikTok, Rock Bottom with Ryan. Gmail, Rock Bottom with Ryan at Gmail. You can always DM me or email me or call me. My number's on the Instagram as well for business line and everything. And I also promotional ads every now and again on social media and stuff. So that's becoming a thing that I do for counseling centers and stuff. So that's something I've been doing lately. But yeah, they can reach me through those and coaching coming soon. I think it's going to be primarily working with men, I would assume, just because I just think that's probably the most appropriate is just
Yeah.
one-on-one with men that and they don't have to relate to me, but I'm really excited to get into coaching. So it should start within about 4 months.
I love it. I love it. And I will absolutely, I get a lot of men who reach out to me to see if I work with men. I occasionally work with men one on one, but I will happily refer them over to you
And
because
vice versa. Yeah.
yeah, you're amazing. And so, if anything that Ryan said today resonated with you, please just send him a DM because I also know that we love to hear when something resonates. So, just send him a message. He would love to hear from you and give him a follow. And we'll have all of your links in the show notes as well. So, thank you so much, Ryan. This was so much fun.
I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me on. And I feel very special that it had me as the first guy coming on and hearing the male perspective on things. And some of the questions you asked just really got me thinking, especially that what you pointed out at the end about being lucky enough to be a normal drinker. And that just got me in my head spinning now.
You're going to be, yeah, that's going to be with you all day.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun though. I really appreciate you being on, and thanks to all your listeners out there for taking the time to hear me.
Yeah, same, same. And I'm also just in general very excited about our new friendship.
Me too. I'm just like I was just gonna tell you, let's keep in touch no matter what. So
Absolutely, absolutely. All right.